World of Tanks Blitz versus World of Tanks PC. Which is better? Which is worse? What are the similarities and what are the differences? Which would you rather play? And all in all, overall, what's the best game of the two? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this incredible comparison that I'm going to be doing right here, right now. So strap yourselves in, because it's going to be a bit of a long one, but nonetheless, it's going to answer all of your questions that you might have between the differences and similarities between the two games and what I think is the better game overall. Starting with the obvious, World of Tanks PC is a game that is primarily played on PC. It's played on computer. You can't play it anywhere else. You can technically play World of Tanks on console. Yes, there is a World of Tanks console game that you can play on Xbox and you can play on PlayStation. But we're not going to be talking about that because technically speaking, that is actually a different game to World of Tanks PC. So we're not going to be talking about that. So yes, World of Tanks PC is obviously played on PC only, whereas World of Tanks Blitz can be played on PC through Steam and through the Microsoft Store. It can also be played on Nintendo Switch, and it can be played on any mobile devices, including iPads, laptops, and of course mobile phones. So yes, World of Tanks Blitz does have a wider variety of platforms that you can play it on compared to just World of Tanks PC. Now, how about when the games were made? Now, obviously both games are made by Wargaming, and essentially World of Tanks PC came out first back in 2010. The game was released in 2010. The beta test was in 2009. So technically speaking, it was 2010 that this game was released, so it's now currently over 14 years old. World of Tanks Blitz, on the other hand, was released in 2014, with beta testing starting in mid to late 2013. But of course, 2014 is when the game was officially released to the public. So yeah, World of Tanks Blitz is over 10 years old, whereas World of Tanks PC is over 14 years old. And boy oh boy, have each of these games gone through a substantial amount of changes, rebalancing, reworking, graphics changes, graphics improvements. So many things have been added. So many things have been removed, and we're going to go through them. Next is, of course, the graphics. Now, the graphics on World of Tanks PC are obviously better than World of Tanks Blitz, and the reason for that is, well, it's a much bigger game. It's a much more dynamic game. It has much larger maps, and I mean much larger maps. It's a 15 versus 15 platform. There are different game modes where there's maybe more players, maybe less players in the game modes, but overall, all in all, it's 15 versus 15, and as such, the maps are massive. They are huge maps, and they're very, very textured. Obviously, you have different, graphic settings. You can have on max settings with full high definition tank models and grass models and shadowing and track marks and all that kind of stuff, right? And of course the HD tanks and the HD maps. You can have all of that switched on, or you can have sort of lower resolution, lower graphics. You can have the lowest graphics, whatever it may be. There are different types of things, but essentially what you need to know is World of Tanks PC is well over 20 gigabytes to install, and that should give you an idea of how big the game is. Now, in comparison, World of Tanks Blitz is actually pretty damn good when it comes to graphics on mobile devices. In fact, they are currently Wargaming is currently developing and working with Unreal Engine to create a brand new, not only interface, but a new graphics model, new graphics system, graphics design, you name it, we're going to have it in Blitz. It's going to be awesome to see when the Unreal Engine 5 comes out. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. However, the one downside is it's going to be a much larger file to download onto your mobile devices, but it does mean that you can probably switch out between your graphic settings and whatnot. If you don't have a high-end phone or a high-end mobile device, you can always play on the lowest settings. That's fine. It'll still probably run smooth. But at the current moment, the graphics in World of Tanks Blitz are very much acceptable. In fact, they're very, very good compared to other mobile games. Now, let's talk about the tank lines. Because the tank lines in World of Tanks PC and the tank lines in World of Tanks Blitz are quite different from one another. Let's start off with World of Tanks PC. Now, with World of Tanks PC, you have a lot of tech tree lines. In fact, you have... I'm pretty sure Blitz has like half the amount of tech tree lines that PC has. But we're not going to go through the specifics, we're just going to give you a couple examples, right? For instance, World of Tanks PC has artillery, which I'm going to talk about separately in a separate video. They have, the Swedish line, for instance, has tank destroyers, and they have medium tanks, so the UDES and the Stridsvagn 103. Those are tanks that you can't get in Blitz, yet. You have Russian mediums, like the 430U, which you can't get in Blitz, that's not a line. Then you have tanks like the Object 705A, for instance, which is a rear-turreted IS-7, essentially. That's not in Blitz. That's a different line completely. That's not in Blitz. Now, previously to this video, there was no German light tanks at T10, but now the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen is also going to be tanks Blitz, so that's a big up right there, warning. And just tanks in general. Like, for instance, the Object 264, the Object 268 version 4 replaced the Object 263 at 10. The Object 263 moved down to T9 and unfortunately was quite watered down. Whereas in Blitz, the Object 263 is still a Tier 10 Soviet tank destroyer. It used to be called the Yellow Wagon, but it's no longer called the Yellow Wagon, unfortunately. But it's still pretty damn good. It's not amazing like it used to be, but it's still pretty damn good. But the point I'm trying to make is, PC removed that tank and put it back into Tier 9, and instead replaced it with a stupidly OP at the time, and still kind of OP, Object 268 version 4. Now, the Object 268 version 4 is in fact in World of Tanks Blitz, but the only difference is that it's a collector tank, not a tech tree tank. Another example of a difference between Blitz and PC is that the FV215B183 is no longer in the game as a tech tree tank, but it's rather a reward/collector tank in PC, whereas it's been replaced by the Badger. Whereas in World of Tanks Blitz, the Badger is a tier 10 collector tank, and the FV215B183 is actually a tech tree tank still. However, this is a big however, the Leicester server, which is basically the Russian branch of the of Wargaming for Blitz, has removed the FV215B183 and made it a collector tank for those that already had it in their garage, and instead gave the players the FV205B Alligator after the Tortoise. So very interesting move by Leicester there, but we're not going to refer to them too much now. So that's an interesting difference right there. And then, of course, you got, interesting lines, for instance, like the Japanese super heavy tanks, which World of Tanks Blitz does not have. So the Type 5 Heavy is a T10 Japanese super heavy tank in World of Tanks PC. But of course, World of Tanks Blitz does not have super heavy tanks. Instead, they have regular Japanese heavy tanks ending in the Type 71. So it's more like a VZ75 or a VZ55 or a BZ75 sort of style tank, which is pretty cool as it is. Again, tanks, for instance, like the Grill A15, which is in both PC and in Blitz, but previously to that, there was no Grill A15 in World of Tanks PC. It was instead the Waffenträger Auf E100, which was dubbed one of the most broken tanks in the game, but we don't talk about that. That's a different thing altogether. But in Blitz, it's always been the Grill A15. And then, of course, we talk about the FV4202. Now, in World of Tanks PC, it used to be a Tier 10 medium British tank, but it was moved to Tier 8 and made a premium tank and nerfed. But in in Blitz rather, it's still in the tech tree as a Tier 10 British medium tank. In fact, it's one of the oldest Tier 10 British tanks in general in the game. So, yeah, bit of an interesting thing there. One interesting fact about PC and Blitz is that a lot of the older tanks and the mechanics and the physics that used to be in World of Tanks PC is now adopted by World of Tanks Blitz and has been adopted for quite some time. So it's an interesting little fact there that many people that play World of Tanks PC tend to not know about. So yeah, it's an interesting fact right there. And then of course we move on to maps in general. We're going to talk about maps in general, right? In World of Tanks PC, as I stated, the maps are quite massive, but you also have a large variety of maps. You have much more of a selection of maps in World of Tanks PC than you do in World of Tanks Blitz. But that's not saying that Blitz doesn't have its fair share of interesting maps. However, the thing is, on PC, all the maps are available to be played on in a random battle, whereas in Blitz, there are a number of maps that are selected for a selected period of time, and these are the maps that you play on. And then after that selected period of time is done, they basically switch up and they bring us another batch of maps that we can use. There are some maps that have been removed, such as Mirage and Lost Temple. Just as in PC, some maps have been removed or never implemented in the game. So, a bit of an interesting thing there. Now, another thing that's very, very interesting with a difference in terms of in World of Tanks PC and Blitz when it comes to maps is that in World of Tanks PC, you used to be able to actually climb huge areas above the map and different mountainous ranges and stuff like that, and mountains and hills to get into sort of interesting positions. And then, of course, Wargaming decided to implement invisible walls once again, and then it just basically, you can't go up there anymore. But in Blitz, that's not the case. If you got a fast enough tank and you have enough vehicles to push you, you'll be able to get into very difficult positions as well. Now we talk about ammunition. So in World of Tanks PC, it used to be you had to fire, if you wanted to fire Pramo or premium ammunition, you had to use actual gold, which, by the way, World of Tanks Blitz originally implemented very, very early on in the game. And then they quickly removed that, right? But the difference here between PC and Blitz is that in PC, yes, you are paying a substantial amount of credits to fire premium ammunition, but the difference is that you do the same amount of damage as you do with your standard rounds, firing premium. Whereas in Blitz, they actually patched that mechanism quite a while ago, so now when you fire your premium ammunition, you're actually doing less damage than you would with your standard rounds, and that's to balance out the fact that you have more penetration now on your rounds than you would your standard rounds. So, good going, Wargaming. You actually did a very good job there, balancing out people that want to fire nothing but Pramo. So, yeah, interesting little fact there. I thought I'd add in with ammunition. Then let's talk about crew skills and crews in general. So in World of Tanks PC, you have a mechanism that's been in place for a very long time where you have a set of crewmen in your tank that you need to train at a barracks in order to unlock certain skills. And one of the most crucial skills of those is, of course, Sixth Sense, which in Blitz, for instance, comes standard with every single tank. Now, previously, and only recently actually this has happened, previously, in World of Tanks Blitz, when you research your tank for the first time, you are offered for free 50% crew. Then you can pay credits to get 75%, or you can pay gold to get 100%. In the last patch, they removed crew skills completely from the game. So now when you research your next tech tree tank, it is 100% crew skills. The only difference is that you need to grind the specific set of skills yourself when you're playing matches. But in PC, that's not the case. You have to train your crew every single time you get in your tank. You can put, let's say, a crew from a tier 10 tank into a tier 8 tank that you're grinding, for instance, and then you can use that crew in that tank, and it's confusing, but you get the hang of it after a while. So yeah, interesting little fact there about crews. Then we talk about, of course, the amount of players in a game. So in PC, there is 15 versus 15, whereas in Blitz, it's 7 versus 7, and it's always going to be 7 versus 7. However, as I was saying, with the PC version, there are different game modes where it allows you to play more or less players. In fact, with PC, there was a game mode that allowed you to play 30 versus 30 players, which was very interesting to see. And it had a larger map than usual to supplement that. Whereas with Blitz, we've had a game mode that actually has 10 versus 10 on the normal maps that are in the game, which is pretty awesome, and it was quite fun to see, and I would rather see that implemented permanently in the game than the 7 versus 7. So yeah, it's 15 versus 15 in PC and 7 versus 7 in Blitz. So yeah, interesting little fact there. What about crates? Now, crates is a controversial topic regardless of which game you play. But yeah, crates, very, very interesting little thing there. In PC, they have what they call loot boxes, right? And you have to pay actual money for them, not necessarily for gold, and it's a whole different thing altogether. And they usually include standard gifts, tanks, and skins, like reskins and equipment skins and stuff like that for Tier 10 tanks. And then only recently, only in the last few years, did Wargaming implement a reward system for opening loot crates. So if you open 50 loot crates, you'll eventually get a Tier 8 premium that they just released, right? So they took that idea from Blitz. The only difference is with Water Tanks Blitz, when it comes to crates, it's a little bit less insane and a bit more rewarding. So you need to get like 15 charms or something like that. You've got to open 15 crates or 25 crates to get a certain amount of charms, and then you're guaranteed to get the tank. So yeah, there's that. It is more expensive though. Anyway. And then we have aspects, like specific aspects in the game that you don't get in Blitz that you do in PC, for instance, which is female crew voices. So female crews are indeed a thing in World of Tanks PC, as well as unique crews such as Quickie Baby, Skill for You, Des Gamers, Santa Claus, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Some of these interesting and unique characters who are crews, or basically crew members that you can have in your tanks that have unique, obviously, voices. Whereas with Blitz, you only get the nation crew voices and the national sort of crew voices for each nation, and then that's it. There's no female crew voices, it's all just male crew voices, and it's very different. Now, do keep in mind there are mods that you can have that will basically guarantee that you might get it. If you install those mods, then you can make your Water Tanks Blitz feel like you're playing PC almost. So it's a nice little touch there. But yeah, Water Tanks PC, you've got female crew voices, you've got unique crew voices as well that you can't get in Blitz at all. And then we have gun sounds. So the gun sounds in PC are different to those that are in Blitz. Gun sounds in PC have been reworked very long time ago, so whenever you hear it now is usually how it's been for a very long time. But for Blitz, only in a very recent patch, about a year or two ago, they removed the old gun sounds and brought about something very similar to the PC gun sounds into the game engine, which is fine, but it's still not as good as the original. I think the original had better class and it sounded better than the PC version, so yeah, that's just my opinions. But yeah, gun sounds definitely different in both games, and a different and a unique sort of touch, I think, between Blitz and PC. Another pretty important point and a disparity between the two is that Water Tanks PC is a lot more difficult to grind up the tiers, whereas with Water Tanks Blitz it's a lot easier, it's more user friendly, and it's very much less pay to win than Water Tanks PC. With Water Tanks PC, it's very much pay to win, whereas with Water Tanks Blitz, it's more so pay to progress. But again, Water Tanks Blitz is more friendly to free to play players and those that just want to do casual gaming, whereas with PC, it's a little bit different, where a lot of things are basically behind a paywall, or it's just a ton of tier 8 premium tanks that are overcooked. So yeah, you do have that little disparity. I'm not saying that we don't have in Blitz, there isn't a fair share of tanks that are cooked. Yeah, there is quite a bit, but I mean, nonetheless, it is what it is. But yeah, a nice little comparison there with Blitz and PC, where Blitz is basically just an easier game to play and an easier game to understand, and just better for free-to-play players over Water Tanks PC. And finally, the biggest disparity between the two games is obviously the influencers and the YouTubers. So with Water Tanks PC, you have you have your Mighty Jingles, you've got Quickie Baby, you've got Skill 2 for you, you have Klaus Kellerman, you have Des Gamers, just to name a few, and then you have Water Tanks Blitz, where you got influencers like Meadsy69, Droodles, Bushcon Blitz. You had Skate Extreme, but no longer is he. Fatness is no longer available, but he was one of those people. And then you get like people like What Be Joe and Ungal. And then you have people like What Be, for instance, which you should definitely go subscribe and get him to 1,000 subscribers. Do it now, quick smart. And my good friend, my good compadre, and my brother, What Be. People like myself. People like Flossie. People like Clouds on Blitz. And the rest of the guys, Hammers and, Top Gun Blitz and all these Blitz YouTubers, Amunet, Fujits, every Armored Pants back in the day, Mutton Dogger back in the day. So many different Blitz YouTubers have come about because of this game. And there aren't as many Water Tanks PC YouTubers as there are Water Tanks Blitz YouTubers. I think there is a very clear disparity between the communities. You can definitely see that the Water Tanks PC communities are a lot larger because it is a much bigger game and it's been around for ages, and there are a lot more people that play the PC version than they do the Blitz version. But that being said, the Blitz community contributors and the Blitz YouTubers do have a better connection with the community and the supporters, as opposed to someone like Quickie Baby, for instance, or Des Gamers, who have hundreds of thousands of followers, so they don't really get a chance to speak with every single one of those people. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see, but a nice interesting disparity. Definitely different playstyle, definitely different games, different commentary, different types of people, but yeah, that's a big difference in terms of the both games. And I think I'll leave off with one more point. Wargaming for What PC are different to wargaming for Water Tanks Blitz. And I'm going to say this very, very simple. We're going to finish off on this point because I feel like this is the most important point. Okay? The wargaming staff in charge of Water Tanks PC are not as good as the wargaming staff in charge of Water Tanks Blitz. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm trying to hound on the Water Tanks PC staff. I'm not in any way, shape or form. I respect them. I love the game. I think it's fantastic. But the Water Tanks Blitz developers, the community helpers and the community leaders, right, the marketing team, everyone at Wargaming for Water Tanks Blitz is just better than PC. And that's facts. Everyone knows it. The game is balanced better. The tanks are cooler, right? The gameplay is quicker and more fun. It's more engaging. The community helpers and the community members in the Water Tanks Blitz Wargaming staff, they're always communicating with us, the players. They're always answering our questions. They're asking us if they want to answer questions. They're on live streams constantly. You very rarely see the Water Tanks PC team do that on their YouTube channel, which probably why the Water Tanks Blitz YouTube channel has well over 400,000 subscribers, as opposed to the Water Tanks PC YouTube channel. So it could give you a good indication of how they are with the community. Yes, both games have their flaws. Yes, Blitz has its flaws. There are many flaws in Blitz, but guess what? I think we can all agree, and we can all gladly say, that Water Tanks Blitz is, and it will always be, the better game over World of Tanks PC. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this comparison video. Let me know if I missed anything or if there's some other stuff that you would have liked me to speak about. Perhaps you wanted me to speak about bonds, for instance, because bonds are a real pain in the ass, apparently. Blitz does not have anything relating to bonds, but we did have something very similar, which was spare parts. And that's a whole different saga that I've made a video on that you should definitely go check it out. So yeah, bonds, spare parts. I guess you could say they're very similar to each other, but they're not necessarily similar. And I guess we could leave off by saying that Water Tank PC has a lot more broken Tier 8 premium tanks than Blitz. But who are we to say that? It's just a game. It's just a game. It's fine. Who cares? If you made it to the end of this video, by the way, you're a bloody legend. Just know this. You're a bloody legend. And I love you all. Thank you so much for sticking around and actually waiting to the end of this video. And I'm going to leave, if you are here, by the way, I want to say something and I'm going to ask you to answer this in the comments below, and that will let me know that you've actually stayed to the end of this video. Who is your favorite Blitz YouTuber and who is your favorite World of Tanks PC YouTuber? Drop me in the comments down below, and it doesn't have to be me. By any circumstance, you don't need to tell me whatsoever that I am the best, because I'm not the best. There are other people out there that are way better than me when it comes to Blitz content, like for instance Peter, or Cora, or Flossie, or Meadsy69, or of course my good friend WhatB. Subscribe to WhatB. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite YouTuber is for Blitz and what your favorite YouTuber is for Water Tanks PC. Guys, I love you all. Stay safe on the battlefield, look after your friends and family, and look after yourselves. Trust me, in this day and age, in this world that we're living in right now, you really do need to cuddle up and look after yourselves. And of course, peace in the Middle East. See you later, legends.
Hey, it's me, Goku!